Hello, my name is Mr. Budwell. I'm a maths teacher and also Key Stage 3 coordinator at the Langley Academy. So I have an overview of the Year 7s and Year 8s. The purpose of the video is just to give you an introduction to what it's like to study maths here. So we'll look at the structure, a little bit about the curriculum, but also the electronic resources we use. And there are a couple of We have 14 members of staff in total, including a HLTA and an academics maths tutor. Students receive 7 lessons over the fortnight period. We have 6 dedicated classrooms, and each one's got a touchscreen Promethean. It's basically like a big TV, so we project lessons, resources onto there, but it's also interactive, so it's a very nice way to get students up to the board and they can write their answers to a certain question. We can even split the screen in half, for example, get 2 students up to the board and have a question which they solve as a competition, which obviously they quite enjoy. Each student has now been given a mini whiteboard as well. Now, these are used quite extensively across all year groups, and the purpose of it is for students to answer a question, and it gives the teachers a chance to see the mental process that they've used. We can check to make sure it's a logical, correct process, but key feature is it allows us to identify any misconceptions that might exist, and what we can then do is address that with the entire class, because more often than not, it's not just a single student who has that misconception, it's multiple students. We deliver the curriculum called White Rose Maths, and I'll be talking about that in more detail on the next slide. Some of the electronic resources we use in addition to White Rose Maths are My Maths, which is extensively used for the homeworks that we set. And again, I'll be talking about that in more detail later. The other one is Microsoft Teams, which you're probably familiar with. We use that extensively over the lockdown periods. We use it obviously much less now, but it is a very nice way for us to communicate with students. We can post messages on there. We can also set other resources for students to access. And then the final thing is the enrichment activity that we host. And we have chosen UK Maths Challenge for the year 7s. So the curriculum is what we'll be teaching the students, and we follow the White Rose Maths curriculum here at Langley Academy. The benefit is it's the same one they use at the primary school, so we continue it and then we are able to develop topics that they've studied already, as well as introduce them to new ones. So it's a continual learning journey. It's not something for primary and secondary. We try to link it together. There's several topic areas. Some ones are familiar, for example, algebra, application of number. We also deepen the understanding of fractions and angles and shapes as well. Multiple resources we can use. There's PowerPoints and videos linked to those. There's also worksheets, as well as some textbooks that we have in the classes as well. Assessment tends to be through a baseline test, which they do early on in September to gauge their general mathematical ability. And then after each unit that they study, we give them a brief exit ticket, as well as a more comprehensive end of term test to see how well they've learned a certain block. Now, just to explain what that means, I will just show you where the website can be accessed. It is actually a free resource, so you guys will be able to look at this yourselves as well, just via the internet. If you just type in White Rose Maths, first search engine result that comes up is that one. And it is a free website for a lot of the resources, which is very beneficial for the students as well. And if you just click on resources there, you can see there's a primary, there's mixed age, but secondary is one we're looking at. And this part here is the schema learning. So this is essentially what they will be learning in their secondary school. And if you just scroll down, you can see we have all the schemes of learning there, year 7. Students have already done these 3. This was in half term 1. We're obviously now on the run up to Christmas, and students currently are studying place value and ordering. And again, there's a lot of resources which can take time to explore, but the main one is the schema learning that I'll focus on for this video. And this is the overview of what they'll be learning. So as I mentioned, we're in this topic here at the moment. And if we scroll down, this place value gives us the main objectives for the lessons. It normally takes about 2 weeks a block, which is what would be taught by your teachers. And if we look at that first one, recognize the place value of an integer. If you scroll down, you can see it just breaks that small step up into a little bit more detail, including some of the key vocabulary the students would need, certain key questions they would need to be able to answer, as well as some example questions here as well. So if students are interested in seeing what is coming up, this is a nice little way for them to see that. It obviously doesn't go into too much detail, that's why the lessons are there for us to teach them, but it does give them a roadmap of what's coming up. It's also quite useful if students have missed any lessons. They can look at this, see what they've missed, and then they can try to catch themselves up a little bit. To help them with that, if they go to this section here for parents and carers, and they can either click on home learning, or if you just click on the main tab and just scroll down, it's the same link here. Obviously year 7, and this is a little bit backwards in the order, so if you just scroll down, this is the beginning of the year, the end of the year is at the top, and as I said, they're doing place value and ordering. You can actually see videos of the key elements that they would need in that lesson. So obviously with COVID, obviously with just normal absences, if a student does need to catch up, they can just click on a video.
Hi, I'm Mr. Bond, and in this lesson we're going to
and obviously they can skip through it. Questions are there, and it does have the answers as well. So it's a nice way for students to kind of catch up on some of the material. Obviously, it won't cover everything that the students are exposed to within lessons. There's other questions teachers will ask, but it will cover the main parts of the lesson that they missed. One of the main resources we use electronically is MS Teams. Obviously, it was used quite a lot during the lockdown period for live lessons. We still do use it, and the main reasons are for setting work for students. We can set homeworks. We can also organize revision materials in the future as well. And as you can see from here, I've just set up a simple folder structure. Students can access class materials. This can include PowerPoints, worksheets. It could include links to those videos that I showed you in a previous slide. Anyone who is absent, they can go into the absence resources, and again that will be resources to help them catch up on any learning that they might have missed. And then there is assessment revision there as well. This could be exam questions, or it could be links to certain websites which would help with their revision. One of the other features is the posts section here, and that's quite a nice one where students can communicate with each other. For example, I had a recent one about a question related to homework, and then the good thing is other students actually saw that before I did, and they can reply to the students, so they can tell them what the homework is, where it's accessible. And I think that's one of the really nice things, that although lockdown wasn't pleasant, the children are communicating with each other much more efficiently via electronic means than they were before. Obviously, once I do see it, I can reply to a message as well, and every student is able to access that as well. But obviously, Microsoft Teams isn't used as much as it was, but my 7B MA2 class can still access a lot of the resources via Teams. Hello, and welcome to this guide on how to use MyMaths. It's a brief introduction, just going to show you some of the main features, such as how to log on, how to view tasks that have been set by your teacher, how to view your previous tasks that you've completed, as well as some of the other activities that are available as well. So we'll start off by how to log on. Now, hopefully the student has it saved in their favorites, but they might be using a different computer. So it's very straightforward. Just type in MyMaths into any search engine. You should find it straight away. You don't have to worry about primary or secondary. You can just go to log on. And there are two levels of access. The first is the general one, which is shared by every single student. This is the school level. So the username is the Langley, and the password is quadrilateral, and that's with a capital Q. All the students were given these details on the very first maths lesson, plus they are posted around the academy, so they can always copy them down if they need to. And that will take you to the MyMaths. The second level of login is individual to the student. So again, they were given these details. The first one is usually a 3 or 4-digit number, and their password is just 3 letters, all lowercase, so no capitals in there. And it will ask them whether they want to save it. And they can tell that they have accessed their area because their name would be here. And that is how you log on to MyMaths. So once a student has logged on, they'll need to access the homework tasks that have been set for them. And this is from the login screen. So you can see the tab that says My Homework is already highlighted, and it shows the homework tasks that are still outstanding. So this one we can see is due today, due in 2 days and 9 days. If you click on it, it does give more information, such as when it was set, and there's also access to a lesson as well as the homework task itself. It also gives the grade of that particular task as well, so the student knows what level of work they are accessing. So if we want to access it, all we have to do is click on the homework task, and it will load up straight away. Then the student just needs to work through it. So I might get some of these wrong. And then once they press mark, it will mark the work for them. The good thing is they can obviously see the errors that they've made as well, and it will give them a score. Now, I don't know if you noticed at the top here, it popped up with saved for 1 week. So the student, if they don't feel comfortable, they can, for example, exit it and go to the lesson, check it, and then come back into it to try the second set of questions. Alternatively, they can just scrap this one and then start the whole thing again. If we go on to the second level, again, these questions tend to be a little bit more wordy than the first page. So half would be, again, just type in a few pieces of information. You can probably try these as I am doing them as well. Again, just going to make a few errors. And there we go. Again, you can see there's mistakes there, and that's the homework done. If you click on summary, you can then see how you've done overall. So for the first question, which was this tab here, we can see we didn't really do very well, and it's actually this image here, which means that that hasn't been passed. The second section, which is usually the harder questions, we can see we've actually passed. Anything below 70% is usually not a pass rate. So what we'd recommend is, this was 64% overall, we'd recommend to the student to give it another go. Again, they don't have to try it straight away. They can watch videos online, or they can work through the My Maths lesson before they try it again. And as I said before, to access that lesson, you would normally just click on that part there. These ones are due in 2 days and 9 days. So again, the student has the option. They can always keep ahead of their work, but that is basically how they would access the homeworks, and then how they would complete a task and save it as necessary. Once a student has completed the task, they might want to try it again, or they might want to go through the previous unit and just to see which areas they needed to improve on. And this is done via the results tab. So all the homeworks as mentioned on this tab, and as you can see, the one we've just completed has disappeared from there. If we go into the results, we can see it was actually that one there. So if you click on it, again, it gives us the breakdown. Question 1 was a weak area, question 2 was done quite well. And if they need a lesson, they can click on that, and it will talk them through the My Maths lesson for simple equivalent fractions. Once they are prepared to try it again, click on homework and then just complete it. And you can also see here, tried 1 time. So the teacher can actually see how many times they have attempted the work. So what we'd expect is, if a student has tried it and not achieved 70%, we would like them to at least try 1 more time to improve on their previous score. And as you can see, all of the ones that we've completed so far are listed here. Once this list gets a bit larger, it can be tricky to keep track of them. So one of the things I would recommend is you can sort the data, and that way you can easily see which ones you need to work on and which ones you are passing without any problems. So this one's actually already sorted. The weakest area is squares and cubes. Okay, so again, if we wanted to tackle that one, we can see that question 2 is a very weak area. Click on the lesson, and it does build up very nicely with animated slides. It also does have questions integrated into those slides to just check the students' understanding. There is a few games mixed in there as well, just to check their knowledge. And once they are comfortable, they can close that down and attempt the online homework again. There are a few other features I'd recommend that can be useful, especially for Year 7. The first one is progress, and this just shows how they've done across the tasks that have been set. So for the grade 1 tasks, there were 74 in total. 3 of them passed, 1 was just under a pass, and 1 was something that would need further attention on. And as you can see, it has the other grades as well. So that's a nice way to keep track overall of your progress. The library is one of the main tools as well I'd recommend. So if a student wants to find a lesson or a homework task based on something they haven't even done yet, they are free to view the library. So you can go for number topics, algebra topics, ratio, proportion, geometry, and this is basically everything that is in the curriculum, some probability and statistics as well. So it's really nice if some students like to read ahead. For example, the algebra unit is coming up. Some students might want to try to maybe make a little head start on it. They can go into it, they can view obviously the suitable grades, 2 and 3, 4 and 5 would not be suitable at this point. They can click on it, view the lesson, and even attempt the homework. Okay, so the library is definitely a really useful tool. If you actually know what you're looking for, it can sometimes be tricky to navigate this. So one of the weak areas, for example, was the fractions, squares and cubes. So if I wanted to find more information about squares and cubes, you can just type it in here. and that will bring you straight to the activities which are focusing around that area. Some of these will be games, some of them will be the actual task, and it's easy to identify if it is related to the work you've done because it will come up with your score as well. So again, that's a really useful tool. One of the other things that I find very useful is the activities. So we've got games, we've got tools, and again, if we click into it, you can see these are separated by the curriculum topics as well. The tools are quite useful. So one of the weak areas was fractions. We could click on this, open the tool, and it's kind of like an interactive way for students to play around with a certain topic. So for example, if we just say we want a fraction wall up to 5, and they can compare fractions. So it's a nice way for them visually to get an understanding of the topic, which can be difficult. So if they are looking for a fraction which is the same as a third, they would play around with it, and then they can see that that's the same. So 2/6 are equal to 1/3. The games is also very good. One slight issue with the games is they do require Flash Player. So if you click on one and Flash is not enabled, then you will need to activate it. There is a link here which will take you to an online support site for this, so it's very easy to do. All you have to do is choose the browser you have, and there we are, for example, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, and that will guide you through it. But that is just some of the tools which I think are also useful for a student in Year 7. There are more advanced tools such as Revision and Booster Packs. However, in Year 7, most of these would not be required. And that wraps up this brief introduction to the maths faculty. Hopefully you found it useful. There are a few resources obviously that you might want to explore, but any questions, please get in touch. Thank you for watching.